The Chicago Bears have no excuse not to dominate the Cleveland Browns, especially with all the injuries the Browns are dealing with around Shedeur Sanders.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And I want to thank you for making Locked On Bears your first listen today and hopefully every single day. On the show today, we're going to go through what the Chicago Bears need to do to beat the Cleveland Browns and why they should dominate the Cleveland Browns. Why Myles Garrett's really the only thing you need to be worried about with the Browns defense. Why the Bears defense should be just fine against Shedeur Sanders and this Cleveland offense, and how much of a factor the injury report is going to play on Sunday's matchup, especially for Cleveland as the much more injured team. But we'll check in on the Bears' health in that process as well. But really, like, this game comes down to just having a plan for Myles Garrett. Like, that's the one thing that, can derail a lot of what you want to do. But when it's such a singular threat for the Cleveland Browns defense, that makes it, I'm never going to say easy, right? Because it's never easy to slow down Myles Garrett, but easier when you've got one thing to focus on, as opposed to like, okay, you got to slow down the pass rusher, but also they have good player at safety or good linebacker or good, whatever it is. Like, no, this is a very much a one dynamic threat. They've got other good players, and we'll talk about them in this conversation too. But like, this is all about, hey, just don't let Myles Garrett derail everything you want to do on offense, because he is the one game wrecker maybe anywhere on Cleveland's roster right now, but especially when Caleb Williams is on the field. You got to make sure you know where 95 is at all times. And the good news is that he doesn't move around a ton. At least they haven't moved him around a ton this season. Doesn't mean they couldn't, I guess, decide to do more this week all of a sudden. But generally, they stick him against your left tackle and run that matchup over and over again. The bad news is that's the Bears' weakest, youngest link on the left tackle, with, Ozzie Trapillo as a rookie second-round pick going up against the toughest matchup of not only his, of his football career so far, but maybe the toughest matchup of his football career from this point on. I don't know if it gets any harder than Myles Garrett in his prime right now. But I think Ben Johnson also can scheme this up in a way that, not neutralizes Myles Garrett, but limits the extent of the damage Myles Garrett's going to do. Because I think we can all acknowledge and just like come to terms with the idea that he's going to get a sack at least in this game. And he's going to get a tackle for loss in the running game or two. Like, he's going to blow up a run or two, and he's going to blow up a pass or two. There's a certain amount of like Myles Garrett-based disruption that is unavoidable or unpreventable. But what you do have to be intentional about doing is making sure he doesn't have the 4-sack performance or blow up all of your running plays, right? Completely derailing everything you want to do on offense. And that's where, scheme and personnel and matchups and everything can play a big factor here. Because, of course, there are going to be occasional times when you might have to leave Ozzie Trapillo one-on-one with him. You'd like to minimize those, but sometimes in a game, like, you can only scheme up so much, and they can rush you in a certain way to try and create one-on-ones with him. If they blitz 2 people to that side, so everyone's got to take one guy at a time, then Myles Garrett is going to get a one-on-one matchup over there, right? There's little things that can happen that way. But generally, when you have a star pass rusher like this, the strategy is very much an all-or-nothing type of approach. Either you throw bodies at him and you go head first at, we're going to get Myles Garrett in the running game and passing game. You just put human beings at it. Or you avoid him completely and say, we're not even going to worry about blocking him, and we're just going to eliminate him from being a part of the play. And there's a lot of different ways you can kind of do both of those things. And if you sprinkle that with some good variety over the course of the game, it's part of how you can really minimize that player's impact. So, like, when you talk about like going all at him, right, then that's leaving a tight end in and just double teaming him from the snap, right? Not even a chip, but just like full on double team, and have Joe Tooney come over and triple team him, and have the running back watch him and quadruple team him. Like, in pass protection, you can go all at him, slide the protection that way, leave extra blockers that way, and just say, hey, we're going to build a wall between Myles Garrett and Caleb Williams, and he's going to have to go through at least 2, if not 3, or maybe even 4 people to get to the quarterback. That's how you can go like on the sort of all-in side over there. Go at him. Send people that way to say, hey, we're going to combat this head on. Alternatively, you could say, screw that. We are going to run play action and roll out away from him so that even if Myles Garrett's going to beat Ozzie Trapillo in pass protection, big deal. You beat him and the quarterback's already on the other side of the field. So that pass rush doesn't really have a chance to get all the way over to Caleb Williams. Or, same idea. You can run a screen pass, and even if it's the opposite side where Myles Garrett's rushing the quarterback, but you're not even really actually trying to block him because you're going to block and then release out in space. And you literally let Myles Garrett go. Don't block him because you're going to throw it over, around, or behind him to get the pass. And I realize there's some danger there if Myles Garrett is running free to your quarterback. So maybe you don't literally leave him unblocked, but you release your guard tackle, your guards and centers, and you let Ozzie Trapillo kind of stay in front of him. But like doesn't actually need to stop Myles Garrett because the ball is going to come out before Myles Garrett can get around him, right? Like those are the ways you can kind of completely avoid him. And same thing is true in the running game, right? Your options are either run right at him and put him at the point of attack so you can get a bunch of bodies on him, or run away from him so that he's not able to make as much of an impact in the running game, right? You can run that outside zone towards him so you have the left guard and left tackle working on him as a double team, and maybe even a tight end pressing down, and you could double or triple team and have a fullback come in there as well to try and help on Myles Garrett and just say, hey, we're going to make sure he's not blowing up the run play by putting all your blockers right at him to designate him as like, hey, this is where we're going to run towards, and really overpower him at the line of scrimmage. Or you can run a toss play the opposite direction where, even if you don't really get much of a hand on him, like a full sprint Myles Garrett down the line of scrimmage is going to have some trouble catching up when the running back has that much of a head start in terms of space and speed, right? Or even a step further, you can run read option with Caleb Williams and literally leave Myles Garrett unblocked and then make him wrong every time by, if he crashes down on the running back, then Caleb pulls it and Myles Garrett's out of the play because he's chasing the running back, or vice versa. If he waits for the quarterback, then hand it off to the running back and he can't get in the play because he's got his eyes on the quarterback, right? Like there's a bunch of different things where if you kind of just sprinkle these all in a good variety, you can build up a game plan where there's very few times of Myles Garrett having easy opportunities. And doing all that can be limiting if you're worried about other matchups for your offense. Like if you're worried about a second pass rusher that's going to cause you problems when you're spending all your time on Myles Garrett, or there's really good cornerbacks that are going to shut down your receivers. So you can't just run simple, easy stuff to get away from Myles Garrett because you need your receivers to have more time to get open downfield. But the Browns don't really have that. They have some good linebackers for sure. The rookie Schlesinger, and then Devin Bush as well from Seattle, who's I think was a Steelers draft pick or a Buccaneers draft pick originally. I get those fast linebackers mixed up. Steelers draft pick. They got some athletic tools at linebacker that have been pretty good at taking away some of the middle of the field. Like I do wonder if Caleb Williams will be able to hit as many of those like deep in breaking routes, if that space will be there as much. But I think you can create that space if you run the ball effectively and you run that play action so those linebackers take that half a step forward. That creates just that much more space for Luther Burden or DJ Moore or maybe even Rome Odunze to cut in behind them, because this defense has generally been good at those deep dig routes and crossing routes, despite running a lot of like single deep coverage. Vast majority cover 3 and cover 1, but they've got a good feel over that middle of the field of like not letting big damage happen there. They force a lot of throws, short and to the sidelines is where more teams are having success, in part because the Cleveland corners haven't been particularly strong. Denzel Ward's been battling injury and not phenomenal when he's been out there, and the rest of it are guys I don't think almost any of us will have heard of. You might recognize Tyson Campbell from the Jaguars. He was been a starter for them, but like it's not much in that secondary. So the cold is going to be the biggest impediment outside of Myles Garrett to being able to consistently throw the ball in this game. But I think Ben Johnson should be well prepared for neutralizing, not too strong of a word, trying to reduce the impact of this one Hall of Fame player, and then everything else should be manageable for this Bears offense. I mean, if the Tennessee Titans can put up 31 points on this Browns defense last week, there's no reason why the Chicago Bears can't do something at least similar. I guess cold weather might keep the scoring down overall, but you get the idea. They should have similar ease with moving the offense in this game. Defense is a little bit less of a sure thing, given that the Bears defense has struggled and Shedeur Sanders has shown some really nice flashes for Cleveland's offense. But it's another area where I think coaching and scheme-wise, the Bears should be at a good advantage with some of the matchups that they see on the field, and where Dennis Allen can really take advantage of Shedeur Sanders in some key ways. We'll break down what that looks like and how injuries are going to play into both sides of the ball, where the Browns have a laundry list of an injury report. That's coming up next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Zocdoc. Guys, it's the end of 2025, almost 2026 now, and those days of waiting for something to become a full-blown emergency before you see a doctor are over. No more walking it off for 6 months. No more pretending that weird shoulder stiffness is just from sleeping wrong. It's time to take your health seriously, and Zocdoc makes that easier than ever, because staying healthy is more than just hitting the gym and eating right. It's about actually getting things checked out when something feels off, and Zocdoc makes it super easy. You can search for in-network doctors and book right in the app with real appointment times listed, including same-day visits. So no more back and forth phone calls or waiting weeks to be seen. And you can compare providers using real patient reviews, not ads. So stop putting off your doctor's appointments and start getting the care you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by Car Gurus. Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And Car Gurus makes the whole process simple by getting you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else, so you can shop the way you want. I actually used Car Gurus last time I bought a car. It's been a couple of years now, but the website has been around for a long time and it's been a really solid resource to just really help you compare side by side. And you can filter through everything: mileage, trim, features. So you're only seeing exactly the cars that fit what you need. And you can use their deal ratings to compare prices quickly without having to guess whether your car is of fair market value. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online motivated marketplace, you can always find the best deals. So shop the way you want to, with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at CarGurus.com. That's CarGurus, CarGurus.com. Shedeur Sanders is always going to have some element of danger to him, that he can hit some big plays. I talked about it on the Bears squad show this week, that there's just like the tiniest drop of a familiarity of Caleb Williams in him. And he's pretty good at avoiding pressures, extending plays, maybe holding onto the ball too long, but finding guys open downfield and being unafraid to fire that ball into tight spaces. And as a result, there could be some opportunities for turnovers there, but he could also burn you a time or two. Like, it would not surprise me at all if the Browns get a couple of explosive passing plays in this game, but it's not going to be enough. It shouldn't be enough. There's no excuse for this Bears defense to not be able to get the job done against Shedeur Sanders and company. And I expect Dennis Allen to scheme this well to make life difficult for him. We talked on Wednesday's podcast about how the Bears have been blitzing more and more, in large part because the four-man rush hasn't been effective enough, and this is a matchup that necessitates blitzing because A, Shedeur Sanders hasn't been particularly great at it, but then also, like, B, you can really get after these guys while their offensive line is struggling. Their offensive line is super banged up, and so I can see where the temptation is to say, well, if their offensive line's gonna have a bunch of backups in there, then rush the four-man rush. But like, something to be said about mixing up what you're gonna show Shedeur Sanders and bringing a lot of different stuff at the line of scrimmage. And it's been a small sample size with Shedeur, so I don't want to make a bunch of like sweeping final generalizations of like, oh, well, he's bad at this or good at this. It's more like has been bad at this so far, but he's far from a finished product. And week to week, we see new things and different fluctuations in what he's been able to do as a quarterback. So I hesitate a little bit to be too definitive on this, but like, this is the type of quarterback where you're going to want to see that Dennis Allen dime package with 6 or 7 guys lined up across the board at the line of scrimmage. You're not sure who's going to come and who's going to go, and maybe not so sure who's going to be dropping back into coverage and what coverage they're going to be on the back end. I mean, we talked, was that Tuesday's podcast, about how Dennis Allen was a little bit predictable in sitting back in man coverage behind the blitzes against Jordan Love, and he tore them apart. I'm less confident in Shedeur Sanders being able to tear them apart the same way. Like, it's been a little bit odd to see, but Shedeur has been surprisingly like worse against man coverage than with zone, and I think that's more a reflection of blitzing. I think a lot of times when he's faced zone coverage, he's had more 4-man rushes and a little bit more time to sit in the pocket and find open receivers downfield, whereas I think when he's faced more man coverage, it's been a little bit more blitz heavy, and that's why he hasn't been as successful against man coverage. But like, this is definitely not a scared quarterback. Like, he's pretty good at throwing it away and trying to avoid some of the big negative plays. He'll still give them up here and there, but like, he's getting better at throwing the ball away a little bit more and more. But like, you also kind of want to tempt him to throw some of these tight window balls and to try and force something in there that he thinks he can hit, but Kevin Byard steps in front, or CJ Gardner-Johnson steps in front, or whatever the interception play might be there. Like, we also know his mobility is something he's going to want to use, and that's another part that blitzing is more effective at slowing down, right? When you're sending those extra pass rushers, there aren't as many or any escape lanes out of the pocket, right? When you're talking about a 4-man rush, and we see it with Caleb Williams all the time, when there are 5 offensive linemen, there are 7 gaps essentially, because there's, one on the outside of each tackle, and then one in between the tackle and the guards, tackle and guard, and then one in between the center and the guard, center and the guard. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess 6 gaps. Math is hard. If you had a tight end, you get a 7th gap in there. There's 6 gaps for a quarterback to run out of, and 4 pass rushers that can fill 4 gaps. So when there's a 4-man rush, there's always going to be at least one gap, because a lot of times you'll end up double teaming down, right? But like, you're going to always have at least one clear space between 2 linemen where no pass rusher is for a quarterback to escape to. But when you rush 5 or 6, you might take away all of those gaps, or the only gap is to go like backwards down and around the pocket, and then he's even farther away from the line of scrimmage, and then things take even longer to develop, and there's even more space for pass rushers to keep him down, right? Like, all these things are why you've seen teams blitz Caleb Williams a lot, teams blitz Lamar Jackson a lot, teams blitz Jalen Hurts a lot. Like, and I think it's why you'll see the Bears opt for blitzing Shedeur Sanders a lot, in addition to, the disguise and trying to fool with his eyes and things like that. I also think, though, you don't need to like overdo it on the disguise, right? Like, I think Shedeur has been impressive in a lot of what he's been able to do, but like, he's not, he hasn't been great by any means. It's just not, not been horrible at all either. Like, a lot better than a 5th round pick should be, but not, dominating, lighting the world on fire. So like, you don't have to like overdo it and, sort of trick yourself a little bit, or be 2 steps ahead, or like kind of overthink it. That's the word I'm looking for. You don't want to overthink it here. Like, I think about what happened against the Packers, and on was it the first Christian Watson touchdown, or was it the Bo Melton touchdown, where the Bears are in a disguised coverage and Jalen Johnson doesn't go deep enough because it's a role he's not supposed to really do. So Brisker has to kind of come over and cover the guy in the post route across the middle of the field. He's late to get there because it wasn't really his responsibility, but the guy whose responsibility was, Jalen Johnson, wasn't there. And it was kind of like, I don't mind taking that risk of trying to disguise some stuff like that against Jordan Love, because you maybe have to go a little bit more advanced, defense 301 or 401 to try and fool Jordan Love. But like Shedeur Sanders, you can still get him with more standard disguises, right? If more standard variety, he's still trying to learn his own offense and trying to learn how defenses are defending him, right? And it's not that he's not a capable quarterback. It's just he's in his third career start. Like, any third career start quarterback is going to have trouble with that kind of stuff, especially because his offensive line is decimated by injuries. We'll talk about in a second. The running game doesn't particularly scare me. I know like Quinshon Judkins is a fine back, and they have some mixed results at time, but like, even if they get the running game going a little bit, like, that's not going to be enough. There've been plenty of games this season where the Bears allow some runs and maybe even struggle in run defense, and it doesn't really derail what they want to do on offense, because you still need to have the passing game to pair with it, and you still need to have consistency all around in offense, even if you're getting some decent yards per carry. It's hard to win the game just on a running game, right? Like, You need explosive plays on that. And the Bears can give up 4 or 5 yards at a time and still be just fine defensively. I think if there's anything I'm more worried about, it's the tight end, Harold Fannin Jr., working up the middle against the Bears linebackers, just because TJ Edwards is still not 100%. And, DeMarco Jackson has been solid, but he's a backup for a reason. And if Amon Agbagba-Miga's in there, he's a special teams player for a reason. Like that can be a mismatch that very few offenses have really tried to exploit that much against the Bears for no good reason. Like, it's been inexplicable. We haven't seen a lot of even teams with good tight ends really attack their linebackers vertically up the seam with tight end. But you can kind of help them a little bit with, sit with coverage over the middle. Even if you're in man coverage and cover one, you still have more help over the middle. So the Bears have been good at trying to mask some of that, but I still would look for Sanders to try and take advantage of that, because I think otherwise the Bears won't have too much trouble with the ground game. They'll get a turnover or two off of the Browns. And I think this blitz and this pass rush is going to eat, because the Browns may only have one starting healthy offensive lineman for this game, because their injury report is rough. And it's not just the offensive line, it's the defensive line as well. And I think this may be the single individual biggest factor in a Bears victory. So we'll look at where Cleveland's banged up and where Chicago is dealing with some injuries, but maybe some positive developments for a couple of guys that have been missing games, Rome Odunze and Tyreek Stevenson. That's next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. This holiday season is one of the best times for sports, with bowl games, big basketball matchups, and of course, teams like the Bears in playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making important choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and easy. So you could pick more or less on Caleb Williams' passing yards, DeAndre Swift's rushing yards, DJ Moore's receiving yards, or you can go across sports and basketball and hockey and soccer or whatever you want to play. PrizePicks makes it super easy, and deposits and withdrawal are quick and easy. It just keeps everything flowing. So download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. The Bears certainly are still dealing with some important key injuries that will impact them against the Cleveland Browns. But by comparison, the Cleveland Browns are just a mess of injuries, decimated and nowhere near full strength. And I wouldn't even be confident in a full strength Browns team coming into this Bears matchup, but holy moly, it's as bad as we can get. And I mean, we don't have to go through all the names on the Browns injury report here, but they have 9 players who were DNP on Wednesday and Thursday, and another 10 who were limited on Thursday. And it's not just backups either. We don't know the Browns roster that thoroughly, but I think the important takeaways here is their center Ethan Posick went on injured reserve this week. Their starting center, so he's out. You're gonna have their backup. I think Luke Whippler is going to be the starter in there. Their starting right guard, Wyatt Teller, on the injury report as a DNP Wednesday and Thursday with a calf injury. Their starting right tackle, Jack Conklin, DNP concussion Wednesday, Thursday. Their starting left guard, Joel Bitonio, DNP with knee and back. So I'm no math major, but that's 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen are either, one's on injured reserve, the other 3 are not practicing on Wednesday or Thursday. That leaves left tackle Cam Robinson as their only healthy, participating starting offensive lineman. If there was ever a matchup for Montez Sweat, Gervon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Joe Tryon-Shanka, and Austin Booker to really make some noise and do some damage, and then you add in some blitzing on top of that, it's definitely going to be this matchup with the Cleveland Browns. You can add in on that tight end David Njoku, who's been their best blocker this season and has been a really consistent weapon throughout his career. He is dealing with injury. I think he's a DNP at practice as well this week. Their third string tight end, Brendan Bates, has been limited. Their safety, Grant Delpin, was out and then limited. Their defensive tackle, Shelby Harris, is limited. Even old friend Tevin Jenkins, who's their backup right guard, popped up as limited on the injury report. Linebacker Carson Schlesinger, limited on the injury report. Even if you just focus in on their defensive line, right? We talk about Myles Garrett and not having much else. First round pick Mason Graham, misses practice, DNP. The other starting defensive tackle, Shelby Harris, limited at practice. Like even if their defensive line was at full health, they don't have a lot of other strong pass rushers. But now, like, your two interior guys that have benefited the most from Myles Garrett getting all that attention that we talked about, also not practicing. Like, it's really, I feel bad for the Browns, but this is a big reason why they're a 3-win team, right? And they just, and also why there's no excuse for the Chicago Bears. Like, you can say, well, the Browns beat the Packers or whatever because they're frisky or whatever, but like, they just lost to the Titans and they're super injured. Like, they're, whatever good players they had, very few of them are actually going to be playing in this game. And so, on the other hand, the Bears keep getting healthier. And we also talked on, I think it was Tuesday, about how, Jalen Johnson's playing, not 100% healthy. TJ Edwards playing, not 100% healthy. And guys like, Rome Odunze was currently playing through some injury and wasn't 100% healthy, and now he missed the game. And so the Bears are certainly not like some super healthy team, but the injury report feels more positive this week than it has been in other weeks this season. Still no Kyler Gordon. That groin injury is going to keep him out for a little bit here. But Rome Odunze goes from not practicing at all last week with the foot injury, I think they called it a stress fracture, if I remember correctly, to limited on both Wednesday and Thursday. And same thing for Tyreek Stevenson. He's been practicing in a limited capacity Wednesday and Thursday. I'm not necessarily confident that they're going to play, and I think the Bears would never say this out loud, but I think if we're being honest, truth serum polygraph time, they would, if they're borderline at all, sit them because you can beat the Browns easily without Odunze and Stevenson, and if that can help them be that much healthier to play the Packers again in 2 weeks, even if Odunze is healthy enough to play, or Stevenson is healthy enough to play, if that's not 100%, sit them down, give them another break. We'll be fine without you this week, boys. Why don't you take this one easy? But Jalen Johnson still on the injury report with the groin, but full participant both days. And Ruben Hippolyte, full participant both days as he's coming off of that shoulder injury. Oh, I didn't mention Olamide Zaccheaus has been limited with a hamstring. So you could see an issue where if Odunze's out again, and maybe if Zaccheaus' hamstring is a real issue and he's out again, you could end up feeling a little bit thin at wide receiver because you'd have DJ Moore, Luther Burden, and then I think Devin Duvernay would be the new number 3. And Ja'Day Walker would be your number 4, and then you'd probably call up somebody off the practice squad, either Maurice Alexander or J.P. Richardson, to be your number 5. I mean, I would expect. I mean, we haven't really heard much about this Zaccheaus injury, so it's probably minor. But I guess we don't know that. Maybe that's not a fair assumption to make. But that would be the one thing to look at. But again, even if you're thin at wide receiver, not an excuse to lose to the Cleveland Browns. Like, you should be able to put up 28 plus points against them. Well, okay, cold weather, I guess, is points maybe aren't the perfect way to measure how dominant you are against the Cleveland Browns. But you should be able to, how about this? You should be able to control the time of possession, move the ball at will, and not punt all that much in this game. How about that? Like, it doesn't have to be 42 points because you just run up the score on them. Because when it's -10, like, game's going to go slower. There's going to be less scoring. The over-under on this game on FanDuel is like 38 points. Like, they're expecting a lower scoring game. So I'm not going to be disappointed if the Bears' point total isn't high, but the game needs to feel like a butt whooping, right? Like, this needs to feel like a 9-win team beating up on a 3-win team. And I don't want to be sitting there in the third quarter with it being a 1-point game or if it's 10-7 in the third quarter and it's like, why aren't the Bears dominating these guys? Like, I don't want to see it. You don't want to play down to an opponent, and certainly you don't want to be caught overlooking the opponent. And I'm not expecting Ben Johnson. I'm not worried about Ben Johnson doing either of those things, but like, I would just want to see that definitively, because there were even moments. It's kind of like the Saints game back in Week 7. Like, Saints are a bad team, and the Bears absolutely like did a good job of coming out and getting up 20-0 in the first half. But there was a brief moment there in the third quarter when they made it 20-14, where you were like, this was a little too easy for the Saints to score a couple of times in the game. And then you finished out fine and you won by double digits. And I kind of expect a similar script for this game where Bears build a big lead, Browns get a little closer than you like, and then Bears finish it out fine. But I sure would like to see them just not even dabble in that middle part and just say, screw it. You go up 17-0 at halftime and you win 20-3, right? And maybe you're not putting up mega points in the second half, but you just never let the other team get close in it because you control the clock with the running game in the second half. Your defense makes a couple turnovers, and like, that's a well-rounded victory. And you feel like, all right, you've built a little confidence back up to go face Green Bay or host Green Bay again a week from Saturday night. That's going to be a huge matchup. But hey, we're not going to skip past this Bears-Browns game. We're going to break down everything we learned on Sunday win or heaven forbid lose right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. And if you are one of our everyday listeners, you could take your listening to the next level and join our brand new Everydayers Club that gets you the show ad-free and also gets you exclusive access to a members-only Locked On Bears Discord channel. So you can head on over to lockedonbears.supercast.com if you want to join the Everydayers Club and take your Locked On Bears listening to the next level. Either way, we'll be back for you on Monday, same time, same place, with another opportunity for you to bear down.